Good evening. This is John Hauser from my YouTube channel, Free Advice. Free advice. That's what I give out, free advice. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a young man today that was telling me about him and his girlfriend, and they're living together. And I said to him, have you considered getting married? A lot of young people nowadays, and a lot of people think that they can just live together without consequences. But I suggested to him, I said, have you considered getting married? He said, yes, we've been talking about it. And I said, well, my wife and I have been married well past 50 years, and it's very important to do it correctly. What can happen is if one of the persons, the unmarried persons that are living in this situation, if they get unhappy or who knows, whatever, they can up and leave and let you hold in the bag. I've seen this happen in our own family members. We had a family member that was shacking up with a young lady, and they got a lease together, and they got a house together, and they're living in this house. They got 4 dogs, and then they bring in another roommate. Before you know it, the whole thing falls apart. That's not the way to get started in life. That's not the way to do it, because then when one person walks out, the other person's left holding the bill. It makes for a messy situation. So my suggestion was to this young man, hey, get married. If you're really and truly in love with this young lady, let's make it a permanent arrangement. 50 years down the road, you'll be glad you did. He said, we're thinking about it. And the other thing I asked him, I says, do you happen to go to church? He goes, well, I've been thinking about that too. And my response was, I go to Tabernacle Baptist Church on Airport Road in Wilson. Come visit sometime. There's a lot of young people there your age, and I think that you will really enjoy it. He says, we have also been thinking about going to church. And so I gave him a piece of literature with the church's address on it. And then he said, do you know? And he named the person at that church. And I said, I do. He says, we're good friends. He says, I've been thinking about going to church. So it's very, very important that we give out good advice, and we give out the right advice. Give out the right advice. Now, in Proverbs chapter 7, Solomon, the writer of Proverbs, gives a very explicit chapter. Very explicit. If you haven't read Proverbs chapter 7, you need to. You need to, because it is very explicit and tells you some things that you should avoid. I'm going to read you just a couple of verses, and I'm reading from the English Standard Version. The reason why I like the English Standard Version is it's in fairly modern English, and it's a word-for-word translation. It's relatively easy to understand. He says, my son, keep my words and treasure up my commandments with you. So Solomon is teaching, and the Bible is teaching, that we are to know God's commandments, we're to know God's word, and we're to keep it with us and keep it as treasure. He says, keep my commandments and live. Keep my teaching as the apple of your eye. And that's how important these teachings are supposed to be to us. He says, bind them on your fingers and write them on the table of your heart. So we're supposed to have these verses internalized. Internalized, that's what it means. Write them on the table of your heart. Have them internalized. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. My sister is wisdom. And call insight your intimate friend. Wisdom and insight. This is very important, that you have insight. You gain insight from gaining wisdom. You gain wisdom from studying the Bible, and you gain insight from studying the Bible and comparing it to life experiences. as I have said in my other videos, when I first went into the carpet business in 1984, and I've done many different lines of work over the years, and each time I went into a different line of work, I had to get educated in that line of work. I had to gain insight as to how it worked. I didn't know anything about square footage or textiles or ounces of carpet per square yard. And then we went into hardwood and tile and laminate and on and on and on. Had to learn each one of those, had to gain insight. I see so many young people nowadays, they don't have wisdom and they don't have insight. And I'm suggesting to people of all ages, get your hands on this book here, read it, gain wisdom, and gain insight. Gain insight. So this, and this entire chapter is about gaining insight, but this entire chapter also has one very important point, and I'm not going to give it away. It's up to you to read Proverbs chapter 7. But here's what the entire chapter is about. The entire chapter is about being led astray. In other words, all of Proverbs 7, after you read the verses that I read, the entire bulk of that chapter is about being led astray. And I won't tell you how it gets done in this chapter. It's very explicit as to how it gets done. But you and I have got to avoid being led astray. I see a lot of these supposed spiritual people on the internet. I recently saw one where it says, this man tells you when the end of the world is going to be. Oh, hogwash, baloney. Nobody knows that. You got a lot of these false prophets on the internet and on YouTube. That's not me. I'm not prophesizing. I'm not making any spiritual promises. I'm not selling anything. What I'm trying to say is pick up the Bible, read it for yourself, gain wisdom, gain insight, learn what is true, and learn what is false. When you read Proverbs chapter 7, it's going to tell you about a young man who gets led astray. You don't want to get led astray. You want to gain wisdom, wisdom to be your sister, and you want to gain insight. All right, so there's a lot of false teachers out there, false philosophies, and false teachings. Avoid those. And the way you avoid those is by knowing and understanding what's here. And it's not hard to do. All you have to do is pick it up, read it, and with pen in hand, make notes. That's all you have to do. It's not complicated. So, free advice. Free advice is this. Make wisdom your sister, learn insight, and learn how to stay on the right path and not be led astray. And my name is John Hauser. I live in Eastern North Carolina. And when I say Eastern, what I mean is it's very flat here. We're almost I guess we are in the coastal plains area. Eastern North Carolina. If you're ever in Wilson, North Carolina, visit Tabernacle Baptist Church on Airport Road. Pastor does a great job. I find my little remote control here. Shut it off and thank you for listening.